Hey, Jamie. So I wanted to share something that happened a couple days ago that the more I think of it, it just really ties in quite well to what we talked about in our last episode about the connection between imaginative possibilities and pleasure. And it's about having a fight with my husband. So maybe that doesn't seem obvious, but I've especially been thinking about how, you have this frame and this practice of, seeing people in their very best and most beautiful light, including seeing them as like the small, innocent child that we all are inside of us kind of thing. And I had a moment a couple days ago where I forgot that. It was, in the morning, getting ready for work, and heard a, not unfamiliar sound of one of my kids crying. And when I asked him what had happened, he said that Papa made him go have a quiet time because he was doing whatever with his brother, right? So, um, and in that moment, I did a thing that my brain loves to do. My beautiful, powerful imagination loves to assume the worst of my husband, especially about stuff with parenting, and assumed that he was just being uncaring, assuming that he just didn't want to play with them or whatever the thing was. And if I'm not careful, I've talked about the version of what my brain does of assuming the worst of my kid gets in trouble at school, he's going to be in a gang, he's going to be a serial killer. I can do that with my husband as well and just be like, I'm alone in this. I'm the only one who cares. My brain can tell me a whole story for sure. And that happens. It's my nervous system and brain being sweetly protective in a way that thinks it's like, look for threat. This must be a threat. He's a threat, right? But of course, it really is at cross purposes and does not help me in the end, because this is the human that I continue to make an active choice to live my life with, co-parent, love very deeply. And when my brain does that, I cannot see the full human that I love. Instead, I see a warped version that's in some parts cherry picked of true things, when he's yelled or whatever. But often imagine things that he's never done, that my brain's just like seen other humans do, other men do, other parents. So it's like I can't see him when I have this version of how my brain wants to imagine him, like the worst version of him. And then a lot of times when that happens, I'll catch it and be like, hey, I know, and then sort of settle it down. But this time, grumpy, not fully in my connected self, went downstairs and made one of those comments that, I mean, you see people make for each other. You see wives make for their husbands and likely vice versa, but there's a certain kind of way that a wife can say to a husband, oh, you didn't want to play with your kids? Oh, I thought there'd be time. You know, like barely even, not really confronting, a bit of a passive aggressive, just a little aside comment. And, I probably have made some of those before and he's let them slide. But this morning he was like, hey, no, I actually thought about it and I didn't think there was time for us to make that game. And then he was disappointed. But I actually had been playing with them before. They chose to do a different game, but that game would require too much setup and we were about to go to work. He clarified that I had completely got it wrong, even in my assumption. And he was hurt by it. And so we ended up talking it out, and I felt so terrible. I felt like genuine, oh, I violated my own values guilt, as well as intense shame that is unhelpful, but comes along with the sort of codependency of my partner is angry with me. Now I'm in hell. Now I have nothing. I have to make him okay with me again. All of that swirling in there. Whew, and working it all the way through. And with all of that, even including taking some time to process and then circle back, we ended up having a really lovely connected conversation. And he shared, how he's been struggling and how he sees some, you could say, progress or growth in how he's showing up for the kids and ways that he still wants to shift in ways that he doesn't, and I shared some of mine too. And it ended up being a beautiful conversation. But I was reflecting for myself, like, yeah, the moment of that little barb of a moment, the little way that I communicated, that wasn't actually little. It felt slight when it came out of my mouth, but what it was communicating is, I'm not okay with you being who you are. I mistrust the decisions you've made, so I have to question them. I have to oversee your parenting. And that is a pattern that I've noticed coming up, that I am working through, and that does not align with like my highest set of values. When you're collaborating with someone, it makes sense to check in with each other, to, be in each other's corners, including naming when you see things you're like, hey, I don't think that's in alignment with how you want to show up, or hey, this is what I see. But that was completely different than the comment I made, because I asked no curious questions. I didn't at all clarify what had happened. I made the worst possible assumption. So the way that plays into our conversation is like, when we open up ourselves to the fuller field of the imaginative possibilities, our brain often has already offered us the worst case scenarios. We're so brilliant at doing that, and our brains can be wildly creative and imaginative, and all sorts of nightmares can come to us, and that's cool, grateful for the survival mechanisms built into that. And I'm thinking back and inviting myself, say, for the future, to really reconnect with my body in those moments and pause and say, hey, before we walk into a conversation, having witnessed what we've witnessed, how can we expand our field of vision to include the entire realm of imaginative possibilities? Yes, those are possible. We're not going to be like, no, it's fine. But like, what else could be there? And can we find within ourselves the version of this person we're going to talk to that is operating from the best version of themselves and includes, their sweet, authentic, childlike self inside, and approach that person versus the person that our imagination tells us is a monster? Because that changes everything about how you even approach the conversation. And in my experience, it's even like, say there is some act that happened that's like, I'm not sure. When I approach, whether it's with my husband or someone else, when I approach still from the place of like, hey, I'm coming to you and looking at the good and the magic inside of you, and I notice this thing and I don't get it, so can you tell me? Like, the conversation can still have all sorts of spicy, sticky moments, but it goes way better than, you suck and are terrible and need to change everything about yourself so I can feel good about whatever, right? It's like a world of difference, isn't it? So I just thought that was deeply ironic. It happened like the next morning after our podcast, and I'm like, oh, there we go again. We're still on our journey. We're still on our journey. And the parenting stuff. So I thought I'd share that one. Otherwise I made it to work through quite a bit of a blizzard. So I've arrived safely. Hurrah. Gonna go practice medicine for another day before the weekend. And yeah, love you, Jamie. Bye.
Hello, my dear. I'm currently walking to my office, actually, but not for work. I get the enormous pleasure and honor of receiving some much needed body work this afternoon from Mouse. And I'm really looking forward to it. I've had some specific spots and patterns of tension revealing itself in certain areas of my body, all on the left side lately, which, from a German new medicine perspective, like I won't get into the details, but like, I understand, kind of per usual, I understand what's going on here. And I have been and still am supporting my body to go through the necessary, spiritual conflict resolutions that bring about the physical, symptom resolution, et cetera, et cetera. And I just really need body work right now. It reminds me of something that one of my instructors told us in my school experience, which was, if you ever find yourself disillusioned, burned out with the profession. Now, they, of course, were specifically referring to body work itself. But for me, it's right in the pocket of kind of like in general how I've been feeling lately about the entirety of my profession, which I may get into here in a moment. Go get touched, basically. Like go put yourself in the receiving end of what you do and remind yourself of its efficacy. And so, yeah, on the kind of facilitation front, I have called in one of my dearest friends and specifically requested his presence a few weeks from now when I'm in Nashville, so I can be on the receiving end of the like kind of, sort of like facilitation, like the way I help facilitate people to make their own connections. This friend very much does that for me. And I just talked to him today and was like, SOS, need you. Like, just straight up, need you. Come to Nashville, please. So that's one way that I'm getting myself tended to, but also specifically receiving some body work. And I booked this with her weeks ago. And like always, like magic, it's just the timing is so perfect because I've been going through it. I'm in the fucking birth canal right now, like personally and professionally. And yeah, I mean, no wonder, like my whole left side is just like flaring up, all this tension. And I've got a cold sore like on my left upper lip right now, which was the final piece of information I needed yesterday to like really like, okay, there's some truth. There's like a lot of truth that I've needed to say. And I think the best and most succinct way for me to summarize it, like to speak to like what I've been going through, is just I have come to understand in the last couple of months, actually, that there are some personal and professional relationships, I suppose. But really what I'm saying is like, yeah, there are some relationships that I've come to understand I need to rearrange and or end. But really what I mostly mean by that is like, I'm recognizing that I have been operating from an energy that facilitates the maintenance of those relationships, and that energy no longer works for me. So the relationships are going to change, and I just deserve and owe a conversation about that to these individuals. There's one professional and one personal, and yeah, I'll say the maybe I'll just be straightforward. I'm downsizing Aaron's position. I'm kind of like letting Aaron go, and that I've been going through it. Like I have felt a lot of like grief, fear. I mean, the whole fucking spectrum. She's been with me for 5 years. So it's not a total surprise to her for me to initiate this conversation with her. We've talked about the fact that it's coming at some point for maybe almost a year now, and the point is here, and it's beautiful. It feels like a graduation, and it's still just, there's like an ache really present in that rearrangement for me. And then the personal side of things, I really wish it had been a graduation, that relational rearrangement, which really is, it's an ending. It's a full ending. And for many reasons, it couldn't be a graduation. So it has held the energy of a divorce. And I'm grieving some things there too. So really, I mean, just what I've been going through the last couple of days is just like I've been in really deep grief while also holding on to this awareness, not just conceptually, but like this awareness in my body. Because like the grief I'm feeling is like, oh, it's being expressed through heaviness and tension and imbalance and all of those hard to feel ways in my body. But I'm also feeling like a ton of relief. And so that is running simultaneous, like this, like I've been super dissociated the last couple of days as I've been really processing through this. And I've been utilizing just, you know, the universally available technology of like authentic movement to like just get unstuck, just get what has been stuck unstuck. And that has been so enlivening and so relieving. And so I'm feeling this like whoosh, I'm like back in my body, but I'm also like, oh, I'm all the way back in my body. And there's like a bunch of hard feelings to feel. And I just feel like I'm like on the precipice of some really necessary transformations. And it's a lot to feel right now. So yeah, that's where and how I've been. And I was thinking as I was listening to you share, you know, maybe the little bit I'll say about the personal relationship rearrangement that I facilitated yesterday actually, is that, you know, you were talking about this conflict, this experience with your husband and how you were recalling the thing I had shared about like holding the highest vision of another person in my awareness as I interact with them. It's really funny. It was really funny, like listening to you share that today, kind of repeat my own words and my own value system, my own philosophy of sorts back to me, because to be totally honest and straightforward, like behaving that way, choosing that disposition, is what actually like facilitated a really prolonged experience of like self-abandonment in this relationship that I have now ended, because I just kept seeing like the highest version of this person and like just like making so many true and good-natured excuses for ultimately what amounts to just like repeatedly chosen disrespect and neglect and just like, I don't know, what's the word for when you I don't want to call it lying, but like what's the word for when you keep making promises that you don't deliver on? Like that, just like I just for years was like excusing that, because I was insistent upon interacting with the highest version of this individual. And what I had been forgetting or just, I don't know, failing to integrate into that practice was also the awareness of like, when I do that and I'm functionally enabling someone to not actually experience the natural consequences of their consistent choice to not live up to their own integrity, when I am not allowing them to, you know, experience the natural consequences of that, i.e. calling them on their shit and or like moving away from them in a relationship because it keeps not feeling good to be in a relationship with them, like I'm not like really I'm just like I'm not staying in my own integrity in that, which really the primary expression of my own integrity is like I only ever do what feels good. And Joan, it doesn't feel good to find oneself in the same like type of conflict with someone over and over and over. And so I think like what I'm saying here is like a piece just finally clicked for me yesterday, which I was like, oh, sometimes the way that we actually can most successfully hang on to like the highest image of someone we're in relationship with is to like do that from over there, like from like way over there, to be like, I actually need to stop. You have this repeated pattern that I am not, you know, I'm not turning you into a villain over, because that, man, that's the thing too, is to decide to move away from relationship with someone while not villainizing them is like deep, deep work. Because also, like, as a little side tangent, what I'll say is when we do villainize another person, it's our attempt to try and know, right? In order, like, rather than remain in that realm of imaginative possibility of like, well, if they're came to me while you were sharing, like, if they're a monster, then I know exactly what a monster will do. And so I can totally justify my anticipatory defensive response because it's a monster, like, so if we don't vilify and we don't turn someone into a monster, now we're in that vulnerable, thematically sensational realm of imaginative possibility of like, oh no, I wonder what this whole complex human person will do because I can't possibly know what they will do. So I can't possibly write a story for them. So anyway, that was also a thing that came to me when you were mentioning the like not turning your husband into a monster, which is like always good advice. But like in the last like 24 hours, I've really found myself in this. I'm proud of myself, and it's been complicated, like really trying to bring about the ending, the necessary ending of a connection with someone while not villainizing them for the express purpose of continuing to be able to hold, like really hold on to. It's my commitment to that image of like the highest version of them that at this point like necessitates me saying that we got to be done here because I keep putting myself in the position of like I had been self-abandoning through insisting on my illusion of events versus the reality that I was actually experiencing. And I've known for many years now that it's a growth edge for me to just go with the reality, to go with like what I'm actually feeling and experiencing in the context of relationship. So I thought, I just found that so interesting hearing you share your story. That was really a story that came up for you to share based on that little anecdotal reflection that I mentioned in our last conversation about this like practice I have towards other people. What I'm not saying is like I'm ditching the practice. What I am saying is like I'm expanding the terms of the practice so that I can ensure that I'm not like denying my own repeated direct lived experience with another individual so that I can be super loving and see them at their highest expression. So that's how that is actually emerging for me at the moment. But the last thing I'll say is that I'm really proud of you for enacting the repair. I'm proud of Francis too. Like it sounds like he responded to you so like lovingly and so sovereignly by saying like, actually, here's my experience. Like he didn't get like defensive in return. And I just think that's so beautiful and so powerful whenever someone has that disposition towards us. Like Ty has that disposition towards me all the time when I'm like doing whatever I'm doing, freaking out about whatever I'm freaking out about. And he's like, okay, well, I'm actually just going to tell you what's true about what was going on inside of me as opposed to what you're assuming. And we'll find our way through the middle of various truths and assumptions together. And like, that's such a, girl, is that like an expression of grace that I still feel like sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, do I deserve that? What do I do with that? Like that feels like such a precious thing to hold that I want to make sure I'm holding it really well. So I just want to say I'm really proud of you. And I think that's all for now. I'm almost to my massage. I'm really excited. So I hope you're having a lovely day where you are. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, Jamie. I'm just listening to your voice memo as I'm driving into work. And oh my gosh. First of all, just like really connecting with and sending warm, loving support to you as you're working through these different shifts in relationships that have meant so much. And in order to stay, what I heard is like, in order to really stay in integrity with yourself, of feeling good and of telling the truth, the relationship needed to shift their shape. And there's a reason people avoid doing that for a time, because it feels so scary. It feels so vulnerable. We have a story that change is so terrifying. In my experience, change is, I mean, it's like literally disruptive. Like you have a pattern, you're disrupting the pattern. And with disruption comes at least some amount of dysregulation, at least in the body absorbing the shift and reassessing, am I okay? Is everything good? But if this piece isn't here, how do I get this support? Or, that's a way I can conceptualize of like what happens when a relationship shifts. Deeply relating to the feelings of grief and relief simultaneously. A smaller version of it, because I know it's temporary, is me like pausing my podcast for the 3 months, feeling both of those things. And I think that's like, I wonder if there's some language where there's a word for that. Like, like German has like Schadenfreude or whatever. Like, is there a word for grief and relief simultaneously, where it's like a loss you knew you needed? And that combo of feelings is it's so particular and so sacred, honestly. Like, what's a big enough word to describe it? And I'm thinking of myself. I'm also thinking of people I love who I either recently or in the near past are walking through versions of that, especially in like romantic relationship, like family going through divorce or that sort of things, and seeing how it could be excruciating, even as it's absolutely like a beautiful choice that's honoring integrity. Like, it's all of that at the same time. I loved hearing you name the different versions of what that can feel like. Like, it can feel, and in part that's up to the other person in like, how are we co-creating this separation, And so it can feel like a graduation if everyone is on a similar page, or I don't know what it is that makes it feel like a graduation, but that's what I'm imagining. Where everyone feels the yes pretty clearly, versus it can feel more like a divorce if the other person's view of the situation is too mismatched from yours, especially if they're like, no, I don't want this. And you're like, yes, I do. Like, that's what I'm picturing. I don't know if that's what you meant, but like, those are so distinct, aren't they? And you can still be having the relief/grief experience, but then there's the extra layer of witnessing how the other person is reacting to the change too. They're co-creating the relationship always, right? So how the relationship's ending is co-created between the two of you too. So how it feels and what it looks like and the texture of it is co-created. One person's holding on for dear life, that's going to be a different experience. Probably less peaceful. I am imagining / I have experienced in various ways, like letting go. I'm thinking of an employee in the clinical context we let go a while back and felt contentious. So wanting to honor and hold and offer an imaginary hug and support to you through that, especially two at once. Woof. But isn't it often the way when you start to be like, oh, wait, and then like, it's like a domino effect, and you're like, oh no, all these other places. I'm realizing I was holding maybe a similar disposition. How can I not now see, now that I've found it over here, how can I now not see how I need to let it go over here? That is what happened with the podcast. Like, I'd been like, oh no, I'm holding these other things I don't even want. And then it's like, uh-oh, what else am I holding that way? And sort of doing the inventory, So, hard work, but like so necessary and so worth it for everybody. Like what you were saying about realizing that, oh, the way that like I can even really continue to genuinely hold this person in my positive regard or whatever it is. Like, where is it integrity for me to be in relationship with this person? And it might be very far away. And that reminds me of Prentice Hemphill's quote, which is like, Prentice is a friend of Adrienne Marie Brown. I believe Prentice uses they, them pronouns. So those are the ones I'm going to use. They do like somatic education and teach about like embodiment stuff too. I first read their essay in one of Adrienne Marie Brown's books. It might have been Emergent Strategy. I can't remember anymore. But the quote from it that like then got Instagrammed around, I think, so you may have heard the quote, is like, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. And that is like such a potent healing medicine for me as someone who definitely just was conditioned / socialized / in a deep practice of codependence with everyone and everything being so messy and struggling to set boundaries, struggling to say no, those things. So the notion of how therapeutic boundary setting is, and there's just something of that particular way. And if I'm recalling the essay in which that quote exists correctly, I believe Prentice is talking about their relationship with I think their father, like I think a parent, and if I'm remembering correctly, like including times of like zero contact with that parent being the way through to continuing to love themselves and their parent simultaneously. And then that shifting, right? And that's been a real like touchstone anchoring idea that I keep remembering. So thank you for reminding me of it again without even knowing you were. I haven't yet fully integrated what I'm about to say, but it was all coming to me as you were talking. Like, yeah, there's a version of the practice of like, I'm holding everyone in my highest regard, where you stay in closer proximity to a person because you're simply imagining the best version of themselves, and then kind of like ignoring what version of themselves they're actually expressing now, actually expressing being like the kind of the key piece of it. And then, then you can be open to receiving harm and like you say, especially if you deeply love someone, a piece of it is you certainly hope they find their way to their best self. Like there's a twisted version of it where it's like, I'm going to keep treating you as if you are acting as the best version of yourself, even though I see the behaviors or the choices or the words or whatever where you clearly aren't. I think I've done that. I think that makes total sense. And I see that the really like critical distinction of like, hey, I see the party inside of you. Remember you saying that once? Like, I see who you are within, like who you are truly, who you are in your most beautiful self within how you are acting now. I see that too. So I'm not just seeing the villainy, but also I'm seeing how that the most highest version of yourself isn't matching what you're expressing. So I could even still be speaking to the part of you that is your best self. Like, say I'm just treating myself that way, where like I can tell the highest expression of myself sleeps 8 hours a night. It's a very non-useful example, but it's what's coming to my brain, right? And I'm consistently only sleeping 5 hours a night. So if I'm like, Joan, 5 hours a night, you're doing it. Like then I'm like lying to myself. And so saying like, it's almost like a lying to another person. If you're like, wow, you are your highest version, like being like, hey, I see who you can be. You get to decide if you ever want to be that person, but I still see that, and I see that's not what's happening here. So I will speak in loving ways towards all of who you are, which includes beautiful expressions of who you are. And I will speak truthfully about the impact of what you're doing. I won't pretend that it's good for me and sort of like it's not having a great impact on me, like whatever it is. I can only do that well if I have enough distance and space to see all of them. If I'm right up in someone's face and how their behavior is expressing is something that then also has fallout on me, like that means I am not expressing the highest, most beautiful, whatever version of myself if I'm allowing myself to be harmed, in some way, or I'm allowing myself to hold a disposition that doesn't feel good, thinking I have to for another person. Whoops. I've accidentally somehow slipped into a kind of codependence, haven't I? And I mean, that's just deeply, I do that. I do that. So I'm not actually saying if you were doing any of that, but that's what was sparking in me as you were sharing what you were sharing. Is a way to say it sort of similar to what Prentice says of boundaries is the way to love me and you simultaneously. So the way in which to most authentically and with the least amount of effort and the most robustly, the way I can hold someone in the highest regard is at a distance in which I am also holding myself in my highest regard. So say my kid's having a tantrum, and that tantrum includes kicking and flailing, right? So if I'm at a distance to be like, hey, you're really upset. You're having big feelings. I'm not going to let you hit me. I love you. And I'm not going to let you hit me. That's a piece of how I am expressing my highest version, most beautiful. All of these sound kind of weirdly hierarchical, but you know what I'm saying. Most authentic and integrity version of myself, best feeling version of myself. I express that. And through that, then I can see and speak to their best feeling, most authentic and integrity version of themselves, Thank you so much for sharing what you shared, because it just pierced the soul of oh my gosh, yes. And in fact, it's something's happening this week, something's shifting. Isn't it funny how that happens? But Francis and I had another moment, which was it was flipped. So he was having a time and spoke forcefully, snapped at me kind of thing, in a rush, the sort of thing. Old me / still me, the me that's still in the room now, but that who I'm inviting to no longer need to be driving the buses often, wanted to just swallow it. In fact, at first I did. I was okay. And then he goes, it was getting ready in the morning, the rush, said a snappy comment to me. It really hit me not good. Felt like a yell at me. There's so much nuance there, but that's how I received it. And my nervous system got all activated for my reasons. And all of that is what happens. But I think the thing of self-abandonment is when I'm still okay, so gritted smile, give him a kiss, love you through gritted teeth. I didn't at all mention that, whoa, hey, I didn't like how you just spoke to me in the moment. I didn't say it at all. And that is my pattern. I don't think I've ever to anyone said, whoa, hey, I didn't like how you just spoke to me. Me saying that out loud is that is foreign. I have not yet found my practice to do that in the moment. Deeply ingrained fawning behaviors, right? And afterwards, I was feeling, that was the part that felt so yucky to me. So that I'm driving to work and I'm I feel so I betrayed myself. I hurt myself when I did that fake smile, fake kiss. When I was angry, I was upset, I was hurt, right? So it's interesting, actually. I messaged him being hey, could we talk? But he didn't see the message. And yet he knows me well enough that he called me hey, I think that didn't end well. And we had a conversation about it. And I got to share my experience. He got to share his experience, and we found our way back to each other again. And I mean, a bit of it was I had to find my way first back to myself from out of my super activated state that wanted to just self-abandon. And then it was from that place then that I could speak about my experience to him, and then beautifully it again happened that he was connected enough to his authentic self that though he explained his experience, it was different than being defensive, I love hearing how you're saying Ty says, I'm hey, you're having your feelings over here. I love to share what's been happening inside of me instead of what you're assuming for me. And then we'll find our way to each other. It's so nuanced. It's not and now everything's whatever. It's this really beautiful, intricate dance, intricate co-creation between two people. more fully rooted in that field of wide possibilities, which like doesn't, whitewash the nasty parts of us, but also doesn't discount the beautiful parts of us, and says like, hey, all of me is here and all of you is here. And I'm going to find my way back to myself so I can lead from all of me and reach out to all of you. So yeah, it just feels really important. I felt like, wow, we are having different, but like really meaningful parallel experiences right now, Jamie. And I so appreciate what you shared about yours, because as you can hear, I had to process a bunch of how it felt for me. And yeah, thank you. I love you. I hope your bodywork session was amazing. Okay, talk to you later, Jamie.
I've been sort of mildly avoiding recording this voice memo, this last voice memo, partially because I've been, like I said, I've been going through it. And that day, sending you that first voice memo had only just begun to be going through it. So it got more intense and therefore more clarifying. And I definitely feel like I'm on like solid footing now. So there is a way in which I was biding my time before coming back to a greater stability to communicate clearly, but also I'm tired of endings right now, Joan. But that's how it goes. And my body is fatigued of the feelings associated with endings right now. And so I could feel her kind of averse to closing out yet another thing. But the truth is that my spirit, my soul, thank you to my body for being willing to be the technology through which the development of my soul occurs, because my body is fatigued and my spirit is feeling really, really resilient. And one of the main reasons for that is just how beautifully this ending, this transition with Aaron is going. And it's top of mind right now because we just ended a meeting a little bit ago, kind of beginning to finalize the plan for her exit in like 6 weeks, which is wild. But it's also top of mind because I re-listened to your voice memo. I just felt as I was hearing you describe both your response to what I shared and then, that quote from Prentice, which I definitely have heard before, and I can like feel it. My body kind of shifts backwards. My arm goes out with like a straight kind of flat palm, straight forward. And I'm holding a distance, but my gaze is soft and I'm pushing away, but I'm relaxed. I'm not defensive. Like it's this like, I love you. Stay over there. I love you. It's like what I have to do with my dog sometimes when he's just like a little too enthusiastic and, jumps when he shouldn't or whatever. But I'm going to institute this policy of sorts in order to protect what we have here. Like everything from your response to you describing that statement and then your interaction with your husband, like I was just really feeling like, I don't know, this awareness of just how much these conversations for this final episode actually are really anchored in this theme of like how to bring about a beautiful death. And I'm learning in this process with Aaron, like, oh my gosh, it's so possible to do. And it's encouraging on a professional level, but it's even more encouraging on a personal level. And we just keep telling the truth and holding a vision for each other's highest self for sure. But like I've seen her be a person of integrity and she's seen me be a person of integrity. So like the trust is there too. And we're both nervous and also excited. Two sides of the same coin for what's coming next for both of us as individuals. And we want to end this well. And I feel the same way about this season, obviously. It's just, I want to end this well. And I was kind of putting a little too much pressure on myself to like find some way to close this out. But I think for me, I keep being so, what I want to say is that I keep finding myself so astounded by like the sort of spell work we're casting here. Just, this season we had about death, so many themes of death. The season we just completed about imaginative possibility, like the bardo, that I feel in some ways like that amorphous, unknown, kind of fluid realm post-death is like way harder. It's the thing I find myself more afraid of, is like what comes after, the unknown that comes after the loss. Like holding on to something, and then also like the process of losing something. There's some amount of known there, but once, that space is opened up, it's the unknown, it's the mystery that is often so much more somatically disturbing and distressing. And if the last few months of my life are any indication, like apparently this is what the bardo feels like, and it's really dynamic. And I have never held such a potent and present, like simultaneous awareness of how it feels to really feel your losses while also being completely almost like relaxed and just like leisurely and playfully aware that like, oh, life comes next. Oh, don't worry, life is coming. Life is coming. I wonder what it's going to look like. Like that part has been hard for me over this past week, to access like a playful, excited, optimistic, hopeful, which all of those words are synonyms for true, honest disposition of like, this is going to go so well. The other side of this loss is going to go so well, because that's just the way of things. That is the natural order. That's natural law. I'm not bigger than natural law. Oh, there's a death here. Oh my gosh, get excited. Like I do feel like I'm touching on that now, and I feel so grateful for the invitation of like, the spell we cast, and the invitation of this season to have these conversations, because deciding to have these conversations facilitated experiences in my life that allowed me to learn how to expand my capacity so much wider to hold the fullness of both of those feelings than I ever thought I had capacity for. Like I'm dreaming in ways that, wow, are shocking me. And I know that is like directly correlated with the fact that I've allowed myself to lose things that at certain points in time I absolutely believed I would die without. And I'm excited. I'm excited to find out like who I am and what there is waiting on the other side of this. And this is part of the decision to let Aaron go. And it's time for me to like not have someone sometimes sort of being me on the internet anywhere. Like at first, like that was logistically just helpful because the workload was overwhelming, to keep up with the expectations of the content creation online. And then Aaron was like a shield for a number of years after, some online incidences occurred. And I was like licking my wounds and like regrouping, but like I feel safe enough. I feel ready. And I know I feel safe and ready because I actually feel excited about some changes that I have coming in the new year, actually, that will allow me to just like directly interact with people, both through like verbal communication, also like physical movement via some gatherings online. But then also I have these, retreats that I'm participating in where I can actually physically be with people. I'm continuing to build my my hands-on practice, and I decided I'm relaunching the group facilitation through my online course because I really want to, because it sounds fun and enjoyable, and also because I'm starting to really love more than I ever have, honestly, just like the energy of working with groups. And so, yeah, in the new year, I'm going to be like reopening enrollment for that with like a ton of additional bonuses and like a super discounted price, because I literally like, I want to do this so bad. Like I had a full moon call on Sunday that in the very middle of me, like so down, 2 hours with this group that I've been meeting with for 5.5 years. I like came off that call and I was like, okay, I see. I get it. I like remembered my passion for communicating to groups of people about these principles, these ways of being that I'm so passionate about, which is exactly what we do here, which is why I love this project so much. So I'm ready to like become more accessible in that again by starting to like do some stuff with like groups. So yeah, it's hard. It's difficult to overstate like the collection of sensations in my body about that, because there's so much excitement and I feel a stability and a readiness. And then there's also just like the very tiny, very small, little hesitant, like, you can't do that. That's not safe. It's not going to go, you know. So I'm trying to facilitate a beautiful death with that part of me too, who is so protective for a period of time. But now she deserves to know that like there is a lot of enjoyment and pleasure waiting for us on the other side of just like walking through the currently slightly scary thing. So I think that's all I have to say for now here at the end of this episode. I'm really excited about, you know, getting really creative for our mid-season content as well. I just actually had the idea earlier today about we should look into scheduling some live Q&A things that we record and then share with the group. But like, again, in the spirit of this, like, I want to talk to people. I want to talk to groups of people. Like, that sounds so fun. It just like, it like saved my life yesterday. And I'm like, okay, this sounds great. Let's do more of this. So I want to get to know our listeners like directly, like face to face. And so you heard it here first, folks. I guess if we decide that we are going to do this, we will keep this in the episode. And if we don't, we'll have our editors cut it. But yeah, I think that would be really fun. I'm excited to record some conversations with you about whatever we want and just leave it unedited and share it. And I'm, really overall just really looking forward to continuing on this journey with you as we begin to explore the wide open field of pleasure. I love you, Joan. I hope you have a wonderful night. Goodbye.
This is Experiential Anatomy. Thanks for listening. I'm Joan Chan.
And I'm Jamie Lee Finch. Experiential Anatomy is co-hosted and created by us.
Amber Wyndham is the editor. Julia Wyndham is the supervising producer.
Senior producer is Elizabeth Wyndham. Aaron Beatty leads our community management.
Our theme music is Park Pier 3 by G's Guy.
If you have any thoughts, questions, or stories to share about this week's episode, email us at exanatomy@gmail.com.
Please follow, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. And remember to join us over at exanatomy.substack.com.
Experiential Anatomy is produced by Windhaven Productions.